Right. Both of these, anti-vertex and east point, like additional ascendants. And opposite them, of course, you have the vertex opposite the anti-vertex, and the west point opposite the east point. And that's like another descendant. No. The midheaven still stands alone.
You have to take it from the latitude from 90.
The co-latitude is your latitude subtracted from 90. And you look up the ascendant at the co-latitude to get the vertex. Okay, just watch them if you're curious. They're fascinating. And remember, no one thing alone is enough. You've got to have a bunch of things. But one example from my own chart was my vertex axis was crossing my ascendant axis when my father died. Now, that's not particularly appropriate, but it was a change of relationships in my family situation. And it could, for many people, I've seen people go in or out of marriage with that aspect. You can have any kind of planet can be crossing it, or it can be crossing a planet. And it'll be some kind of characteristic action of you and other people. Yeah?
When you talk about the vertex crossing something, are you talking about the progressed?
Progressed.
Vertex?
Yes, progressed.
When you find, like you say, that you take the fourth house cusp, is that the fourth house of the natal chart?
For your natal vertex, your natal fourth. For your progressed vertex, your progressed fourth. Yeah, you progress the angles. We'll go into that Friday when we deal a little bit with progressions. I'll do a little more on that. Okay, asteroids. I do want to talk. Okay, another one of the general things that I wanted to deal with was the new angles. There on the board, you will see what some people take for a double X. It's really a V and an upside down V on top of it. And that's the anti-vertex, and below it E for the east point. Those are, I think, like auxiliary ascendants in the chart. Normally they will both be on the left side of the chart, and I first heard about the vertex back about 1970. I only started using it regularly about 1973 when Watergate was hitting the fan. And I was really curious about what was going on with Nixon, and I tried everything I'd ever heard of on his chart. He was a real thoroughly worked over chart. And Eagleton's chart and Nixon's chart, the vertex axis turned out to be such a double whammy that I started putting in everyone's chart after that. It seemed to be so really meaningful at times. Remember, nothing alone, nothing out of context. It's just if it says it again, reinforces it, emphasizes it, then you pay attention. In Nixon's case, his vertex axis falls across the 5th and the 11th houses. So it's like the Leo Aquarius houses. And by progression, it was quite fast. So it had gone into his 10th and 4th houses. And I looked back, it was by the time I was working with it with Watergate, it was moving very slowly. And so I looked back, of course, to see what happened in the past. When you're dealing with any new factor, look back first. Look at your own past, the people you know well, anybody who'll answer your questions. But look backwards first and test out the ideas on what's already happened. Test the theories. So I looked back, what had happened when the vertex crossed the midheaven? Well, that was when he ran for president against Kennedy and was defeated. So the vertex axis crossed the 4th, 10th axis at that time. I thought, that's interesting. Well, what he was coming up to was, at the time of Watergate, his vertex axis was across Pluto in the 10th and his Mars-Mercury-Jupiter conjunction in the 4th. I should have put his chart on the board. I'll put it on tomorrow. And so it was activating that 4th, 10th opposition. Change of home, change of career, security needs versus power drives, and et cetera. The natal vertex across the 5th and the 11th was being activated by progress Mars sitting on the vertex in the fifth house, the natal vertex, and the progress midheaven opposite it on the anti-vertex. So he had midheaven on the anti-vertex and Mars in opposition. And at the same time, his local vertex axis was headed for his local midheaven. It hadn't reached the local midheaven yet, which was on Neptune, remember. I should have talked about local cusp first. We'll do that too. So we had this incredible combination, and all of this was already in effect through Watergate, except the local anti-vertex had not reached, or the local vertex, I guess it was, had not reached the local midheaven. And that was due to hit in 1974. I was studying all this in 73, during the furor time. And I kept looking at that. It was due to hit in the summer of 1974, approximately. And I said, will he, won't he? You know, the last time the vertex axis hit the midheaven axis, he tried for the presidency and lost it, didn't make it. This time he's got it. Is he going to lose it? Already having it. And he did, of course. He had to resign that summer. Summer of 74, when that vertex axis crossing the midheaven. Now, just for your own interest, Jimmy Carter has the same aspect for practically the whole time of the presidency. Even if he runs 2 terms,